My father stood up before the turkey was even cut and said my name like it was a complaint. "Kayla, sit down, I'm not done." I was already sitting down. That's the kind of thing he does, starts a fight before there's one to start, just to make sure he wins it. We were in Macon, Georgia, in the house he built his whole identity around, Williams Construction. 40 years of pouring concrete and putting his name on buildings he didn't design. My dad, Matthew Williams, 61 years old, red in the face before the first drink even hit him. "I talked to my lawyer this week," he said, looking at my sisters first, Michaela, then Tia, then Hannah, like he was counting votes. The company goes to the girls who actually show up, who answer the phone when a job site calls at 2 a.m., not the one who quit to go play with computers in California. That got a laugh out of Tia, not a big one, just enough. "I didn't quit, Dad. I left because you told me there was no room for a woman who thinks too much on a job site. Your words." "Don't twist what I said." "I'm not twisting it. I wrote it down." My mom, Lucille, didn't look up from her plate. She never does when he gets like this. 40 years of marriage will teach you exactly how small you have to make yourself to survive a man like that. "The point is," my dad said, louder now like volume was an argument, "the company, the land, all of it goes to Michaela and Tia. Hannah gets the house. You get nothing, Kayla, because you walked away." He said it like a verdict, like he'd been waiting years to read it out loud. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just picked up my phone because it had buzzed twice in the last 10 seconds, which never happens unless something's wrong or unless something's very, very right. I looked at the screen. Then I looked at my father, this man who built his whole life out of concrete and control, and I almost laughed because he had no idea what he'd just walked into. "Dad," I said quietly, "before you finish, you should probably know what I do for a living now." His face changed before I even said another word. "If you've ever sat at a table where you were told you didn't belong, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I read every one." The phone screen was still glowing in my hand. An email, then a text, then another. "What is it?" my dad said, his voice already losing its edge. "Another app? Another startup that's gonna fold in a year?" I set the phone face down on the table, slow, on purpose. 3 years ago, I said, I left Macon with $4,000 and a laptop that crashed if you opened too many tabs. "Here we go," my sister Michaela muttered, rolling her eyes at Tia. "I'm not finished," I said, and something in my voice made the table go quiet. Even the ice in my dad's glass stopped clinking. I built routing software, boring stuff, the kind of software that tells delivery trucks which streets to avoid, which warehouses are backed up, how to save 4 minutes on a route that gets driven 10,000 times a day. 4 minutes doesn't sound like much until you're a company moving 1 million packages a day. 3 logistics companies use it now, I said. Then it was 6. Then it was every major carrier on the East Coast. My dad's jaw was tight. He still didn't understand where this was going. He thought I was bragging. He didn't know yet that I was building a case. "That email I just got," I said, nodding at the phone, "is from a company called Meridian Freight. You'd know them, Dad.
They're the ones who bought out half your competitors in the last 5 years, the ones who undercut Williams Construction on every county contract since 2019. The color started leaving his face. They didn't buy software from me, I said quietly. They bought the company, the whole thing, $41 million, closed an hour ago. Nobody at the table moved. My mom's fork was halfway to her mouth, frozen there like a photograph. 41? Tia repeated, like the word didn't make sense in her mouth. Million? 41 million, I said. And here's the part you're really going to want to sit down for, Dad, because you've been competing against Meridian for 5 years, losing contracts to them, watching them eat your business one county at a time. I picked the phone back up, turned it so he could see the screen. As of an hour ago, I own 11% of the company that's been driving you to the ground. My dad didn't say anything. He just stared at me like he was seeing a stranger sit in her daughter's chair. And that's when my mom finally looked up from her plate and said the one thing nobody expected. "Kayla, there's something about the business you don't know, something your father's been hiding for years."
Nobody moved. My dad turned to my mom so fast his chair scraped against the floor. "Lucille, don't." "I'm done not talking, Matthew," my mom said. Her voice was shaking, but she didn't stop. "She deserves to know why you really wanted her gone from this family's business." "What is she talking about?" I said. I looked at my dad. His face had gone from red to something closer to gray. "Not here," he said, standing up. "Not at the table. Lucille, get your coat. We're going to the office." My mom stood too. "She's coming," she said. "Kayla's coming with us. Enough is enough." 20 minutes later, we were standing outside the Williams Construction office on Telfair Street downtown, the company's sign half lit, one bulb dead, the way it had been for as long as I could remember. My dad unlocked the front door with hands that weren't steady. Tia and Michaela followed us in, confused, quiet, the laughter from dinner long gone. He walked straight to the back office, pulled open the bottom drawer of a filing cabinet that had a lock on it I'd never noticed before, and dropped a thick folder on the desk. "There," he said. "You want to know why I cut you out? Read it." I opened the folder. Bank statements, loan documents, a name on half of them that wasn't my dad's. "Who's Robert Hale?" I asked. My mom answered before he could. "Your father's business partner, silent partner, since before you were born." "The company isn't just mine," my dad said, finally sitting down, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. "It's never been just mine. Hale owns 60%. I've been paying him out of company funds for 30 years and telling everyone, including you girls, that I built this alone." I felt something cold move through my chest. "So when you said the company goes to Michaela and Tia, there's almost nothing left to give," he said. "Hale's been pulling out his share faster than we can replace it. We've got 4 months before the bank takes the equipment, maybe less." The room went silent. Michaela sat down slowly in the corner chair. Tia just stood there, arms crossed, staring at nothing. So the whole speech at dinner, cutting me out because I walked away, that wasn't about me at all, was it? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. And that's when my phone buzzed again, a name I recognized from the Meridian paperwork an hour earlier. Robert Hale. He was calling me, not my dad, me. I stared at the screen. Robert Hale.
A name I'd heard for the first time 20 minutes ago, now lighting up my phone like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. "Don't," my dad said, standing up so fast his chair tipped backward. "Kayla, don't answer that." "Why not?" I said. "He's calling me Dad, not you. Why would your silent partner of 30 years have my personal number?" My dad didn't answer. He just stood there, gray-faced, in an office that smelled like old coffee and dust, watching his last secret slip out of his hands. I answered. "Miss Williams," the voice said, smooth, careful, the voice of a man used to being the smartest one on every call. "Congratulations on Meridian. 41 million is a fine number for a Tuesday." "How do you know about that?" I said. "Because I've been watching your career for 3 years, long before your father knew what you'd built, long before tonight's little performance at the dinner table, which, for the record, I advised him against." I looked at my dad. His eyes were on the floor. "You advised him?" I repeated slowly. "I told Matthew 2 months ago the company was finished unless new capital came in. I told him there was exactly one person who could save it, his daughter, the one he wrote off. And instead of asking me," I said, my voice flat, "he stood up at Thanksgiving and cut me out of the will in front of the whole family." "Pride does strange math," Hale said. "He thought if he pushed you out first, it wouldn't look like begging when he came to you later." I turned and looked at my father, 61 years old, standing in the office he built his whole identity around, finally small enough for me to see all the way through. "Is that true?" I asked him. "You were going to come to me? After?" "I didn't know how to," he said. 30 years of telling you I built something on my own. I didn't know how to turn around and tell you I needed you to save it." The room was quiet except for Hale's voice still in my ear, waiting. "Miss Williams," Hale said, "I have a proposal, one that has nothing to do with sentiment and everything to do with the fact that you understand logistics better than anyone in this state." "I'm listening," I said. "Buy my 60%, Hale said. "Take the company, all of it. Your father keeps his name on the door, you run everything behind it." I looked at my dad, then at my sisters still frozen in the corners of that small, dusty office. "And if I say no?" I said. "Then in 4 months," Hale said, perfectly calm, "the bank takes the equipment, the lot, and the name your father spent 40 years building, and everyone in this room loses everything, including you eventually. Family debts have a way of finding family." I closed my eyes for a second. $41 million in the bank from a company I built with nothing, and now the family that told me I'd never amount to anything was asking me to be the one who saves Bem. "I need until tomorrow," I said, and hung up. My dad finally looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in years. "Kayla," he said, his voice breaking, "whatever you decide, I'm sorry. For tonight, for all of it." I didn't answer him yet, because the truth was I already knew what I was going to say. I just didn't know yet if it was forgiveness or the final move in taking back everything that should have always been mine. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in a motel room off I-16, the kind with a flickering sign and thin walls, going through every number Hale had sent over. The debt, the loans, the years of my father quietly bleeding the company to keep up a lie. By 6 in the morning, I had a plan, not a feeling, a plan. I drove back to Telfair Street as the sun came up. My dad was already there, sitting alone in the dark office, like he hadn't moved all night. "You came back," he said. Not a question, more like he didn't believe it until he saw it. "I came back for the company," I said, "not for you. Not yet. That's something you're going to have to earn." He nodded slowly. "That's fair." I laid the terms on the desk between us. I buy Hale out, all 60%. The company becomes mine, fully, on paper, no exceptions. "And me?" he asked quietly. "You keep a salary," I said. "You keep your title if you want it. But every decision goes through me now, every contract, every dollar. You don't get to hide things from this family again." His eyes were wet, but he didn't argue. For the first time in my entire life, my father didn't argue. "And Michaela and Tia? What happens to them?" "They keep their jobs," I said, "if they want them. But the inheritance conversation from last night is done. Nobody inherits a company that doesn't exist anymore. Now everybody earns their place in the one that does." 6 months later, the sign on Telfair Street had new paint. Same name, Williams Construction, but underneath it, smaller, a second line had been added. Kayla Williams, CEO. My dad still came in every morning, quieter now. He answers to me in meetings, and most days he actually listens. My mom calls me every Sunday now, not because she has to, but because she wants to. We're still figuring out what that looks like. I didn't get my revenge by destroying them. I got it by being the only one in that family who could actually save what was left. Funny thing about being underestimated. Eventually, you're the only one left standing when everyone else's lies run out of road.